Good Sunday to you. Our scripture for today comes from John chapter 8, verse 12. Again, Jesus spoke to them, saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. So last week we began our sermon series on who is Jesus, and we learned that he said he was the bread of life in John 6. The second I am statement is found in John chapter 8 in verses 2 through 20. So what I'd like to do is set the scene for you. Sukkot, or the Feast of the Tabernacles, was complete, and this feast is the final feast of the year for the Hebrew people. It's often called the Feast of the Ingathering because it occurred after the crops had been harvested. While wandering in the wilderness for 40 years, Israel dwelt in small, movable shelters, and they called those shelters tabernacles, hence the name, the Feast of the Tabernacle. And this feast was to be an annual reminder of God's provision to the Jewish people during that time. It was a joyful pilgrimage, and all people would go. And in this feast, one of the ceremonies was the lighting of 4 menorahs. Each of these menorahs would have 4 lamps, and they would be found in the court of the women, which is the outermost court of the temple. And when these lamps were lit, they would put off quite a bit of light, and this light would be reflected off of the golden walls of the temple on the inside of the courts. And therefore, the temple would be very noticeable throughout all of Jerusalem. So as the feast ends, these menorahs would probably still be sitting in the temple area. Jesus arrives early in the morning, and the story begins. Let us go to John chapter 8, verses 2 and 3. Early in the morning, he came again to the temple. All the people came to him, and he sat down and taught them. The scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery, and placing her in the midst. The people have heard that he's there. He came and he started to teach. And the Pharisees, well, they've come to try and trap Jesus and to turn people against him. So the sun may now be appearing in the area where they were seated. And then for me, what happens next is one of the most powerful moments in Jesus's ministry. So let us continue in John 8, verses 4 through 11. They said to him, Teacher, this woman has been caught in the act of adultery. Now in the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. So what do you say? This they said to test him, that they might have some charge to bring against him. Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. And as they continued to ask him, he stood up and said to them, Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone at her. And once more he bent down and wrote on the ground. But when they heard it, they went away one by one, beginning with the older ones. And Jesus was left alone with the woman standing before him. Jesus stood up and said to her, Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you? She said, No one, Lord. And Jesus said, Neither do I condemn you. Go, and from now on, sin no more. It's no wonder that his next words were our scripture for today, that he was the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. And that's in verse 12. I'll read it one more time. He says to the woman to go and sin no more. And then, again, Jesus spoke to them, saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. You see, Jesus shed light on their sin, their judgmental ways, and on forgiveness. These 11 verses that come before this I am statement truly fits. You can almost hear the words ring out as the sun rises in the temple courts. If we were to hear them ourselves, we would have undoubtedly have drawn an immediate comparison between Jesus and the sun, or Jesus and light. This comparison to the light and the sun is powerful on its own, but by referring to himself as the light, Jesus is making a direct claim to being the Messiah. In Isaiah chapter 9, verse 2, it says, "The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelt in a land of deep darkness, on them has light shone." The teachers of the law and others present in the temple court would not have mistaken the meaning of his words. And this is even more evident by the conversation that follows in John 8, verses 13 through 17. We read, "So the Pharisees said to him, 'You are bearing witness about yourself. Your testimony is not true.' Jesus answered, 'Even if I do bear witness about myself, my testimony is true, for I know where I came from and where I am going. But you do not know where I come from or where I am going. You judge according to the flesh. I judge no one. Yet even if I do judge, my judgment is true, for it is not I alone who judge, but I and the Father who sent me. In your law, it is written that the testimony of two people is true." The use of the word witness when in reference to light, who Jesus himself just referred to. He referred to himself as the light. And to use the word witness with this is actually incredible. He's saying that light bears witness to itself. Each day the sun rises, it tells us it's there. We see the light. And the only people who cannot see the light are those who are blind. If we return to the opening statements of the Gospel of John, light and darkness were used as a contrast between belief and unbelief. In chapter 1 of John, verses 9 through 13, it began with, "The true light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him. Yet the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God." Jesus was described as the true light that gives light to everyone. And there were many who were able to see for the first time this day, and there were many who remained blind, no matter how bright the light was. We see this in the Pharisees. They brought the woman in who was caught in the very act, as they said. And Jesus, he began writing in the sand, in the dirt, on the ground, and people often wonder, what did he write? It's one of my questions. Did he write the sins of the accusers? Did he write their names? Did he write out the 10 Commandments in the dirt as his father did on stone? We don't know, but Jesus challenged them to look at themselves and the one who has not sinned. Let them cast the first stone. And then he simply began to write in the sand, in the dirt, on the ground again. And those who brought the woman, one by one, started to leave, realizing that they were in no way going to challenge Jesus on this one. They knew they had no grounds to do what they did. And when all had gone, he simply looked at her and forgave her and told her to go and sin no more. Jesus offers forgiveness. It's sad that Many of his own people did not understand or did not see. They should have known. Actually, the Pharisees knew from the beginning that Jesus was making the claim about being the Messiah, which was the reason they quickly started to call him a liar. They knew of the many passages which ascribed the Messiah as light. At first, I couldn't understand how they could do what they did to Jesus. But don't we do the same? We may pray for God and for Jesus to intervene in our lives, and then we are unwilling to do what is necessary. We don't want to look at ourselves. We don't want to be held accountable for our own faults at times, or struggle with our own wills and our ways. The answers to our prayers may not be what we expect, but it will be what is right in God's will. And that is often a tough pill to swallow. And that's when I need the light of the world to warm me with his glowing love so that I can carry on. We may be quick to judge those who brought the woman in, yet it could so easily have been one of us doing the same. Today, Satan, he stands before God condemning us, condemning you, condemning me of our faults and our failures. And just as Jesus knew all about that woman's faults and all that she had done, he knows all about your faults, my faults, your sins, my sins. And his light shines on us. He convicts us of our sin, but he does not condemn. He gives us forgiveness. He gives us light. And to not be judged in that manner, to just be loved and forgiven, is, I guess, maybe unusual. We don't tend to do that as humans for each other. We should. And to follow Jesus means to do that, to believe in and trust in him, which leads us to, as Jesus himself said, light and life. And those who follow Jesus, we're like travelers who are following light in a dark night. We need to have light to be able to see where we're going. And we shall not walk in darkness because we have the light of life. And the light shows what we could not see. It guides our every step. And we'll never be left alone because Jesus is the one who's guiding our way. Our part is to follow him, to submit ourselves to his guidance and to respond to his direction. And it's not enough to just look at his light. Gazing upon it and following, or I should say gazing upon it and not following, still leaves us in the dark. We must follow him. We must follow his light, and we must walk in it, for it is a light unto our feet, not only to our eyes. And then we are children of God. I watched a movie a little over a week ago entitled Shooting Dogs. It was a true story about the genocide of the Tutsi people in Rwanda in 1994. It hasn't left me. I had to talk about it. In this genocide, approximately 1 million people were brutally murdered in 100 days. It's inconceivable. The Hutu were quick to hate and to throw stones and use machetes. The Tutsi people were purposely killed, purposely deserted by their government, by the United Nations, by the rest of the world, but not by God. In this true story that was depicted in this movie called Shooting Dogs, there was a priest there. He was there in one of the last remaining, if you want to call, safe zones, a school, a missionary. And when the United Nations pulled out and left them, more than 2,500 men, women, and children were killed. And this priest, he knew this was going to happen. And he said, "Never before have I felt the love of God more than in these last hours." He said it knowing that they were going to die, that they were going to be butchered, and they were. Only a handful escaped. They knew they were going to be with God. They trusted the light. They suffered. Yet this story would not only change the world, but it would shine God's light. And some asked, and some would ask, why would God allow this to happen? Why would he allow in 3 months' time 1 million people to be killed for no reason at all? And when we ask that question, why does God allow people to suffer? Why is there bad in the world? Why does God let that happen? We forget about man's free will. God will make all things work for good, even the vilest of things. You see, there were all these people there. They could have chosen not to do what they did. The United Nations could have stayed. Their government could have chosen to help their own people. The United States or France or any other country in Europe could have helped. They chose not to. So the real question for me is, God puts things in place that can make a difference, that can change the outcome of things. But we have free will. The real question to ask ourselves is, why would we, human beings, allow this to happen? God put so many people there, many people who could have changed the outcome, yet they chose not to. And there were miracles of people who survived. The miracle of this story, as hard as it was to watch and to even imagine that it truly happened, it changed me and showed me that there are people who trust the light, even when the darkness is just completely surrounding them. So often we pray, we ask God to reveal something to us or to change things, and in a way, it's asking for God to shine a light, to bring perspective to a situation. And Jesus, he's the light of our world. And we can hold to that promise today. As we follow him, we will not walk in darkness, but we will have the light of light. Even though darkness may surround us, we will be in the light because we follow Jesus. John 8:12 reads, again, Jesus spoke to them saying, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." If there's any area in your life that you do not understand or you're looking for clarity in, ask Jesus, the light of life, to reveal your next step. Trust that he can see in any dark place, whether that dark place is in you or around you, and shine his light of love and forgiveness there, and he can guide you back into his well-lit arms. Let us pray. Father, we are so grateful for your Son who shines the light of the world. He gives us love, he gives us life, he gives us forgiveness. May we not be afraid to enter into that light. May we not be afraid when darkness surrounds us. May we understand the promise that was given to us when Jesus said that he is the light of the world. Help us believe in that. Help us understand it, Father. In your Son's name we pray. May the light of the world shine upon you now and forever.